I'm Phil Coulter, and you're listening to the Ireland Podcast.
Everything in its place. And I just sat there with my jaw on the mixing desk and going, this is how you make records. God damn it. This is who we should have been working with, right? Somebody's going to challenge us and make sure that every single beat that you put on that record makes it better. It's not just there because, like, God, no, Lord knows guitar players, they'll put 150 different guitars down on there because they have this fucking hamster on a wheel in their brain saying, what if you did this? What if you did this? What if you did this? Right? And it just fills up every beat of the thing. And really what great records are about is the space between the beats, right? And giving space for each individual part to shine. I listened to Stayin Alive by the Bee Gees the other day on the way to work. I got so into it, I ended up getting a traffic ticket because I was explaining to Theo, listen to this. The bass stops for 3 beats in the middle of the riff. And then it hands off to the guitar, and the guitar player plays, and then the guitar stops, and I'm like, I never realized how incredibly arranged Stayin Alive is. Just listen to it. And there's all these things that come in for one beat, and it's a masterpiece. It sounds like this one continuous riff, but there are like 4 or 5 different instruments contributing to it. That's the stuff that just, again, makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, where you're like, these people were masters. The Gibb brothers, tip of the hat to those guys, or whoever was arranging it behind the desk, because that is some amazing stuff.
You remind me of my conversation with Bill Laswell. I was interviewing him about Public Image Limited's album and how the drums sound fantastic. And he says, because it's all the space, there's nothing in there except the drums for a lot of it. You know, there's a bit of bass or whatever, but it's creating that space. Yeah.
Given space. Space is highly underrated, especially in, indie alternative stuff where people hide their inability or their lack of ability by just playing a lot and making a big noise. And, we all do it. We all do it when we're coming up. But like, as you get better, you should be able to play less, right? And realize that that's where the true strength and the true brilliance comes in, is knowing when not to play.
Fast forward 1991, I moved to Belfast. In 1992, 91 and 92, I'm repeating my A levels because I did so well. And my economics teacher, we got talking about music. Oh, you're in a band? Oh, cool. So he was in a band. He's a singer. I can't remember his name, but he looked like Christopher Walken. And he was explaining to me, oh, you like That Petrol Emotion? Yeah. My bass player, Brendan, he's just joined them.
He must have been in the Hungry Snakes then.
Yes, he was the singer of the Hungry Snakes.
Hang on a second here. I got to let my cat in. Hang on.
Okay.
Oh, that's funny. When we were looking for a new bass player after we had told John Marchini that it wasn't working out, it was brutal, trying to find somebody to fit into an established band. And we were literally at the end of our rope going, oh my God, what are we going to do? And I got this letter, and it was from Brendan. And then there was a picture of him playing in the Hungry Snakes, and they all had Hawaiian shirts on, and I liked Hawaiian shirts at the time. And I'm like, oh, this guy looks great. And from the moment, he showed up smoking a fag, and he's like, he's from Belfast. And I was just like, oh yeah, I think he's going to fit in. And then of course, what we did is we played a couple of songs off the new record without, we played it once with the bass, and then we said, well, just play along, right? And you don't have to play what you heard, but I mean, just whatever. And he just, took to it immediately. We're like, okay, that's good. And we had it narrowed down to 2 guys. And then Damien and I brought in Raymond and Kieran, who wanted nothing to do with any of the auditioning bits. And then we played Scum Surfing. And Scum Surfing is in a completely different tuning. Like, you can't look at the guy next to you and look at, where his fingers are in the neck, because it's F sharp, A. So you can't look, you just got to feel it. And the other guy, who was a great player, just got lost. Brendan just head down and just started ripping, and we're like, we've got our guy. Like, it was just immediate. We knew that, like, this is our guy. He was so good. He brought a whole new life to That Petrol Emotion and kept us going another 5 years, right? Without Brendan, none of that would have happened.
It's such a great album, and it's an album that, to be honest with you, I overlooked, because I don't know why I did this. I think I'll tell you exactly why. Because I moved to Belfast and I repeated my A levels.
Yeah.
I just wasn't clicked into many things that I was in the past, but I've been listening to it lately. It's fantastic. The production. It sounds like the band and the album that you should have been all along.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I would love a shot at remixing Chemi Crazy with the original drums, although I think the master tapes got lost in the Universal fire, unfortunately. I would love a shot at Babel with the original drums. Millennium, I'm not sure that can be fixed, but certainly Babel and Chemi Crazy, I would love to just do an alternative mix with that just sounded like the band. That would be pretty amazing. Funny thing about you mentioned, your teacher and him knowing Brendan. My son went into school. He discovered my cache of Petrol's T-shirts, and he's like, "Dad, can I have these?" And I'm like, "Sure, dude, of course." So he picked one of each, and he wears a Petrol shirt almost every day. So he goes into class and he's got the Babel T-shirt with the 5 of us with the sunglasses, and he goes into his first period, and his video editing teacher goes, How do you know the Petrols? Oh my God, how do you know the Petrols? And he goes, "That's my dad." And the guy goes, "Mack, oh my God, your dad is Steve Mack." He goes, "Yeah."
Wow.
And then he's texting me. He's like, "Dad, my first period teacher loves you." Like, I actually got to meet him on, the parent teacher day. And it is yet again one of those stories where, like, oh, I was in this point of my life, and then Babel came out and I listened to it on repeat on my cassette tape. And it was great to meet him, and I mean, you have no idea how simple stories like that, how happy they make us feel, right? To know that you had an effect on somebody's life somewhere and that it made a difference. That's great. I mean, that's all we ask for as musicians, right? Is to try and make a difference in somebody's day. So great to know that there are still people out there who appreciate what we did.
I was working fast forward, and I was working in London. It was PwC, and the tech guy. So I was in knowledge management, and my counterpart in IT. He heard I was from Derry, and he said, "That Petrol Emotion are from Derry." I said, "Yeah." He says, "They're my favorite band as a teenager." I was, "Mine too." So you don't know, like, how, because you played to so many people, and the influence, and also the influence you had in other bands, and then the influence that they had, it just goes on. The ripples just continue.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, recently I was in London visiting friends, including the Petrols, and there's now a tribute band called That Petrol Devotion.
Oh, wonderful.
And they had a gig lined up in London, and so I thought, okay, I'm just going to go down there and stand at the front.
I thought you could say back, but yeah, wonderful.
And but a friend of mine actually put the gig on. It was part of his Christmas party for his record label, and he's like, no, you can't do that. I'm going to tell them. And I'm like, that's fine. You go ahead and tell them. So they reached out, and they're like, "You want to sing?" And I'm like, "I am a singer. Of course I want to sing." So jumped up and did 3 songs with them. And it was great because they had put something out on Facebook, said, "Hey, look, Steve's going to come and jump. So a bunch of Petrols fans came, and God bless them. There's all these 50-year-old men wearing their original Petrols t-shirts, stretched tight as rubber bands. But as soon as we started playing Detonate My Dreams, it was a 55-year-old mosh pit out there, and they went bonkers, and they're pointing at me and I'm pointing at them, and we're jumping up and down and screaming. It was great. It was like just exactly the way it was, and so fun to do that. But the interesting thing is, this band, the two guitar players, the way they found each other, they weren't even friends. One guy has a YouTube channel where all he does is teach people how to play Petrol songs. And the other guy has a YouTube channel where all he does is play his versions of Petrol songs. And they found each other, and they're like, so do you want to get together and play? And they're like, so they got together, started playing. Then they're like, well, they have to find a bass player and a drummer. And they were like, not only do we have to find the rhythm section, but they have to be somewhere near, because geez, it's so hard to get together to practice. But they managed to find two other people who were basically lived near them. So the four of them, none of them had ever met before, but they bonded over a shared love of the Petrols. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's just amazing. Some other members of the band are not amused, but come right. I think it was amazingly emotional, because for the first 3 quarters, they got up there and they just play the Petrol set. And I've never heard these songs being played by anyone, right?
Yeah.
They got up there and they just, every song, I'm like in tears going, this is a great song, right? And the fact that the songs stood up on their own without us interpreting them, and they went deep. They played like The Bottom Line. They played like really, really deep album cuts. And I was like, wow, you guys are serious fans. You're not just playing the hits. They're just playing the songs that they liked. Mess of Words they played. It was great. If you get a chance, I would go see them, right? It's definitely worth your time.
Absolutely. It's sorry, I'm just so amazed. I'm just pulled into the whole world. It's phenomenal. I keep forgetting I'm in an interview sometimes. Such is the fandom. I'm sorry. There's a few things I wanted to say. One was, what happened that you realized that it was at the end?
You'll have to buy the memoir for the full version.
Sure.
But, you join a band and you're 21, and 10 years later, you're 31, right? And those are very, very formative years. Like, people are completely different at 31 than they are at 21. At that point, 1, 2, 3 of us were married. 2 of us had kids. And we'd gone through 10 years of being in a band and not broken through, but kept getting close. And what happened was, it was a kind of a combination of things. First of all, we got dropped by Virgin, right? No, and I'm still Facebook friends with the guy who was our A&R man. Lovely man. He tried everything. They spent a gazillion dollars on us, right? They made videos. They gave us money to make records. They flew us all around the world to play. It is not their fault. They tried as hard as they could. But we didn't break. We sat back and watched as almost every other band that supported us broke through. I will repeat, the Soup Dragons had a hit. They were a terrible band, right? I think that kind of broke us, right? So many other bands broke through, and there was a lot of crap at the time, right? This is before everybody went back to guitars, when everybody was doing the sort of crappy white kid remixes and stuff like that, which we had started 5 years previously, but we never really benefited from. And now you have all these people going, oh, they're all out of their mind on Molly or ecstasy or whatever. And, there's just a whole bunch of crap music around. And so there was a lot of envy and anger on our part about that. We did our last record. We put it out on our own record label. It didn't do anything. And there was, a couple, Kieran and Raymond were just like, we can't do this anymore. It hurts too much. And Damien and Brendan and I were like, well, what are you going to do? I mean, at that point, we could play just about anywhere in Europe to somewhere between 200 to 500 people. We had come down off of our peak, but we would, on Friday afternoon, we'd get in the van, we'd drive across, we'd play to some lovely people in a lovely country. We would be treated like kings. We'd have free beer, food, and then we'd come back on Sunday. It was not a bad way of life. Now, I didn't have a flat. I was living in my recording studio and living hand to mouth. I literally was living off of peanut butter and pita bread. This was not glamorous by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't suck. It was a pretty decent life. But Raymond and Kieran, it literally ate at their souls that we didn't make it and that other people were making it. And finally, Damien and I just said, okay, we're not going to do this again, because this happened on a regular basis. And it was always Damien and I who got people back together and said, one more, let's do one more record, one more tour, one more everything. We would just, and we would talk them into it. And it just, at some point, we just I can't spend the rest of my life trying to talk these two miserable cows into doing their job. And so we let it go. Well, actually, we did talk him into one more. We talked him into the last gig at the Clapham Grand and the one at the Tivoli in Dublin. And we said, we'll record those, we'll put that out, and that, we'll just wrap it up with a bow, and that's that. So we did talk him into one last thing. And at that point, the center of the musical universe had moved out to Seattle, and I started thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing here? And, living in London, it's a mixed blessing if you're a musician. One, you're at the center of the universe, but B, you're at the center of the universe, and you start to realize that the music industry has nothing to do with music. Not at all, right? It's all about who you know, how you're going to somehow get more column inches and more publicity than other people, which involves okay, let's start a fake fight or let's start insulting other people. And we never did that. We never wanted to play that game of oh, this band, they are blah, 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 to start a fake feud. We wanted to talk about music we loved. We wanted to talk about Charlie Mingus. We wanted to talk about Curtis Mayfield. We wanted to talk about the Young Gods. All of this, there was just so much great music. And, that's not what journalists want. They want a juicy story that they can get on top of, right? And then you have Blur having a fight with Oasis, and you're like, wow, pay dirt. And we just had enough. And it was dumb. Of course, about a year later, maybe two, at that point, I was back in Seattle. I'd gotten a job, and I was traveling around the world because I was teaching the world how to put audio and video on the internet, because back then there was no YouTube. You had to know how to do it. And so I'd be in town in London and visit the guys, and they're like, oh, you know what? We should have just taken a year off, maybe put out solo records and then stayed together. And I was like, I hate you right now. Don't you dare say that, because that's what we told you and you guys said no, right? You don't get to change your mind now. I have moved my entire life back to Seattle, right? And it really kills me because if you look at the Wikipedia page, and there's this thing like, well, Steve moved to Seattle. Like, as if it was my fault that the Petrols couldn't get back together. It's like, that's not it at all, right? There were certain people who could not deal with the fact that we were not successful, right? And you look at bands like Los Lobos, they didn't get successful until like their 10th album. They just kept at it until eventually the world caught up with them. And I think the Petrols could have done that. But alas, 'twas not to be until 2008, I think, when we first got back together. Maybe it was 2007, one of those. And then we got back and played the Electric Picnic in Ireland, and there were more than the tent we played in held 5,000 people, and they were streaming out the exits. Everybody wanted to see us so bad. And we had a great show, and I was like, see, that's what we could have done. But then again, there was a lot of pent-up demand for That Petrol Emotion at that point. There were not 5,000 people coming to see us when we broke up. So who knows? Who knows?
You mentioned that they're miserable, but it wouldn't, well, I would say, wouldn't many people have been miserable? You know, I was in a band, and it is, we were not anywhere near your level. By the way, our band is called The Good Things, and whenever I see,
oh, right,
it's a good thing. I was often thinking of the parallels, but it's not fun playing in a gig, you know, where you're driving across the country and there's nobody there who wants to see you, and the promoter doesn't want to pay, and all the, you know, all the nonsense that goes with it. Then you play another gig and you're killing it, and they want you back and all the rest. It's a hard slog. It's a roller coaster, and I can understand why these guys didn't want to do it anymore.
Absolutely. You know, especially if you're trying to get up to that first plateau, that first level where you can start putting records out and people will buy them. But we were beyond that, right? We weren't, let's get in a van and go play third on a bill at the Princess Charlotte in Leicester and then walk out of there with no money because the promoter said you didn't pull enough people, right? No, we were being booked for gigs. We had a promoter who was happy to keep booking us gigs, and we could have played to somewhere between 200 to 500 to maybe 1,000 people in various places around Europe, right? Now, would that have been a highly, and we wouldn't have made a ton of money. You know, we would have had to have other jobs and stuff. But, you know, the first thing you find out when you break up your band is that all you have left after that is your job. And then you realize, oh my God, this is worse, right? I started a band back in Seattle and jumped right back on the merry-go-round. And I thought, okay, I'll show them. And I did that, right? And we put out a record, but we put it out ourselves because initially we were being chased by some major labels, but then they just sort of evaporated. And we played around Seattle all the time. We did one tour up and down the West Coast. We played South by Southwest. But, you know, definitely like showing up and there's 30 people there to see you in Santa Clara, California, and nobody really gives a shit. And after about 2.5 years of doing that, and we put an album out, I finally just went, I can't do this. Now, mind you, I was working full time as well because, you know, over here in the US, there's no dole. There's not like you have to make your rent. So I was working full time at an internet company, which was, you know, 50, 60 hours a week, then rehearsing at night and trying to write songs. And yeah, it was demoralizing. And so I broke up the band. And then I realized a week later, it's like, Jesus, now all I have is work, right? And that's worse. You're like, I never have defined myself by my job. You know, the record I want to leave is the music that I wrote and the performances that I gave. And now I'm not doing that anymore. So I took a couple of years off, and then somebody asked me if I wanted to play bass in their band. And I'm like, sure. That was great. And playing bass is so much fun. You just got to worry about holding down the bottom end, sing the odd backing vocal. And then eventually a bunch of friends reached out and said, "Hey, you want to come join our band?" And I'm like, "Aren't you guys singing like really sad stuff right now?" And they're like, "No, we're just doing covers of T-Rex and stuff." And I'm like, "Okay." And then we started writing our own stuff, and hence Stag was born. And God, we've been doing that now. This will be our 16th year.
Wow.
Right. And it's just, there's certain things about getting into a small room with your mates, turning the guitars up and making a big racket. That's just, nothing else is like that. It's just such a great feeling. Right. And we play, although, very seldom. The demand for men at such advanced ages as ours, although in Seattle, there's still almost everybody I know who was in a band in the 80s and 90s are still in bands. Like we just keep going and going, and we keep playing. We support each other then there's a handful of pubs and clubs that cater to people of our age. And we just keep playing, right? Because it's fun, and we play to each other. And every year we have the summer Stag party, and we invite 4 or 5 bands, and we do an outdoor show, and we get 300 or 400 people there. That's enough. I get to play year round, and I have one big show, and then usually 2 or 3 other smaller shows throughout the year. And now I've got my soul band, which has a brass section, and that's fun. I mean, you just got to keep making music, man. Now we have brain imagery that shows that when you are playing music, you light up more areas of your brain than any other activity. And that's why it feels good, man. So got to keep doing it.
Do you still see the band?
Oh yeah. All the time.
Are you friendly? It sounds like maybe you're not friendly with them.
Oh, we're totally friendly now. I mean, it's like siblings, right? You just know that, like, yeah, that's my miserable brother, and that's my pain in the ass brother, and there's my fun brother, and then there's my crazy brother, right? Like, I'm the crazy one.
Yeah, I was about to say, are you the crazy one?
Yeah, obviously. So yeah, every time I go back to the UK, I always take time out to see the boys. I never give up, so I'm trying to talk him into doing one last record, but it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
It's going to happen.
It's never say never.
Yeah.
I will keep asking, and maybe I will be able to talk them into it. But if not, we'll still keep going out for our Indian meals and just reminiscing about all the crazy stuff that happened to us throughout our lives.
Wow. By the way, I want to say this because you were talking about God Only Knows earlier. And I wanted to say this. Because Bowie's been dead 10 years, I started playing the song, Where Are We Now? And God Only Knows has got split chords. In other words, you might have C on the left hand and then D on the right hand, and vice versa. Oh. And if you listen to Where Are We Now by Bowie, you got F on the left hand and G on the right hand, and then it goes to vice versa. So you listen to Where Are We Now, and it's very similar to God Only Knows.
Oh, interesting.
So we'll introduce that to Theo. And the next question was going to be, is he in a band?
Well, I just got him his first guitar.
Aye!
And another song that he found without me is In the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel, which is, that album is one of my Desert Island discs. And I told him, he played musical instruments like for a little while in elementary school, and then he stopped. And I said, look, it breaks my heart that you're not playing an instrument, but I want you to just come to music when you come to music. Because I hear him singing in the car. He's got great pitch. He drums along on his legs like I do because we're both hyper. And he's got great meter. So he can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, right? And now he's ready. And he's like, Dad, can you teach me Neutral Milk Hotel? And I'm like, I already know the chords, dude. I can play that one in my sleep. So now, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And he's a great kid, and he's dangerously handsome. I had a beautiful wife at the time, and so Theo he's going to be trouble. I'm telling you, when he gets up on that stage, there's going to be trouble. So I'm pumping the brakes like, whoa, boy.
And can I ask about your biological father? What happened there that you came across him? How did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what happened was, I was going out with my girlfriend, and she hated secrets. And I had mentioned in passing once that, I was adopted, and I had a little 3x5 card from the foundry where I was adopted. And it happened to mention that my father was a musician. And, but I was adopted in the state of New York, and in the state of New York, it was not anymore, but it was what we call a closed state, meaning if you try and find any information about your biological parents, they won't give it to you. Now you can hire private investigators and stuff, and they can bribe people and whatever, but it just seemed like a whole lot of hassle. Well, fast forward to this, modern miracle we have now, DNA sequencing and Ancestry.com, and they can find out a lot more stuff. And so my girlfriend Elise just said, look, if you want to know the story, you're running out of time because you're getting on. Imagine that your parents are 20 to 30 years older than you. They're not going to be around much longer. So she talked me into doing Ancestry.com's DNA thing. Now, I had done 23andMe years before, and the closest relative they found was like fourth or fifth cousin. And Jesus, you and I are probably fifth cousins, right? Because I'm Irish by heritage, right? So we are related at some point. Yeah. But it never found anybody close. And when I did Ancestry.com, I got the results back, and it was like, like all these cousins, all these first cousins. And then it had one that said extremely close relative. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to find him. We are totally going to find him. Long story short, I reached out to the extremely close relative. And the way it works is that when you sign up for this, you also tell them how much you want to share. Some people share their names. Some people don't even place themselves. They just lurk in the background and they can see the results, but nobody can see them. But the one who was an extremely close relative had her full name, and in her bio, she said, I'm looking to find out about my family. So I reached out to her, and she's like, and I said, hey, do you want to exchange information? And she's like, absolutely. What do you know? And I said, well, I was born in May 1963 in St. Vincent's Hospital in Greenwich Village. And she writes back, she's like, well, it wasn't our mom because I was born in March of 63. It must be our dad. And then she's like, I found him. This is our dad. His name is Jimmy George, and he was in Dion and The Belmonts. And I was like, wait, what? And of course, everything has to be validated and backed up, right? Because you're like, okay, well, this is what she found out. But so then I reached, and then what you can do is see, okay, who also shares DNA with me and this woman, because that's going to be on my dad's side. And the people who don't share DNA with me and Donna must be on the female side. And I reached out to a first cousin, and she's like, yeah, let's talk. And I said, 1963. She's like, oh my God, it was Jimmy. And I'm like, she's like, I don't want to freak you out or nothing, but your father was, and I'm like, I get it. I'm a groupie baby. You have no idea how happy this makes me, right? It answers so many questions. And long story short, I eventually got to meet my dad. I got to see videos of him playing, and it looked exactly like me. And this is somebody I've never even seen before. The same hand gestures, the same, he tilts his head back when he sings, and I'm like, I'm looking at this and looking at my girlfriend Elise, and she's just like, "It's you," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know. That's who I really am." We have a shared he's since passed on, but we have a shared love of gypsy jazz. He has extremely strong musical opinions, which apparently is genetic. It's just it was
Did
great.
he like the Soup Dragons?
No, it's funny. My older brother, who's also a guitar player. In fact, all of his name was Jimmy George, and he had a lot of sons, and all of them played Les Pauls. All of them. I found them all on Facebook. They're all sitting there and they're all playing a Les Paul. Anyhow, my older brother Paul, who's a bass player, he's like, "Hey, you want to get Jimmy going?" I'm like, "Sure." What? He's like, "Ask him what he thinks of Elvis." So I'm like, "Hey, Jimmy, what do you think of Elvis?" "He was a fucking hack. That fucking guy. I never liked that fucking guy. He couldn't play no guitar. He put a guitar on. He couldn't fucking play a guitar." And just hilarious. And I'm like, "Oh, I guess this strong music opinions is a genetic factor that was passed down to me courtesy of Jimmy." And when I was driving around Seattle with my son and telling him that like it was breaking my heart that he wasn't playing an instrument, but that he had good meter and good pitch, and I was happy that I passed that down to him. And he said, "No, Dad." I'm like, "What?" And he said, "Jimmy gave it to both of us." And I'm like, "Well played, young man. Yes, that is true. We both got it from Jimmy." So, yeah, amazing story.
I love that story, and it is, you know, my kids. I've got a piano there. I've got a drum kit. I've got 3 electric guitars. I've got a double
Yeah.
bass. I've got an acoustic. I've got 2 banjos and a ukulele. I've got instruments all over the place, and my
Yep.
kids have not been playing the bloody instruments. And I just thought, you know, just leave them there, and they'll start playing. And the oldest boy, he's starting to go towards them now, and he's really into Metallica now, which is a bit disappointing. but he's playing really well. And then the younger boy, he's not doing anything, and it's like, what must I do? What must I do? But I don't want to force him. But he's doing drawing, so he's going to find his own path. But it's wonderful to listen to Theo saying that Jimmy gave it to both of us. It reminds me of my musical skills. I didn't inherit any. My parents are the worst. My father used to teach Irish dancing, and he couldn't tell the difference between a jig and a reel. So,
Oh, gee. Yeah.
so you're lucky. You're lucky that you've got these gifts, these genetic gifts. Yeah,
Absolutely right. And that's why, you know, when I hear it's in our soul, right? It's just like I feel it so deeply when I literally I've said it a couple of times, but there are certain songs that make all my hair stand on end. What do you guys call it? Goose flesh or goose
goosebumps.
something? We call it what?
Goosebumps.
Goosebump. Okay, that's what we call it as well. Maybe it's the English who call it goose flesh or something. I don't know. But yeah, and there's other songs that I hear that they make me cry. Like I just start to cry because I find them so incredibly emotional.
Like what?
But I love being that way, right? I love that music has that deep an effect on me.
What song brings tears to your eyes?
A little known song by my ex-girlfriend's band, Voice of the Beehive. God, what is it called again? I will change tomorrow. Perfect Place.
Right.
And because I remember when she wrote it, I came home one day and she sat on the edge of the bed. She's like, "I wrote a song. And she's like, let me play it and see if you think it's any good." And she's played it, and I just like broke into tears. And it's such a beautiful song. It's so innocent, and the lyrics are so pure. I try and play it, you know, but every time I play it, I start crying, right? John Lennon's Mother.
Yeah.
I try and play that song, and I can't stop but breaking into tears. Tim Buckley's Song for the Siren. I'm trying to record that one. But the girlfriend I mentioned earlier, she passed away from cancer recently, and I can't sing that song without busting into tears because it reminds me of her. Yeah, There's
Wow.
way too much emotions for me. I wear my emotions too close to the surface.
I'm dying to know, how many siblings have you got now?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 that I know of.
Right.
That there may be more, right? Jimmy was a very busy man, apparently, and did not believe in birth control, apparently, right? You know, the sad thing is, these are the '60s, right? And the only option at that point was adoption, right? So there's a whole bunch of us running around.
I love that Tom Waits interview where he's being asked, hey, Tom, have you got any children? And he goes, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Funny story. When One Direction came out, one of the guys, Louis, it's kind of a dead ringer for a young Steve Mack. And people started texting me going, huh? Is he yours? And I looked at him and I was like,
I don't know.
I don't think so, but and then I Wikipedia'd it, right, and they're like, no, he's this, mother and father, blah blah blah. But maybe I don't know. Like, to be honest, the Petrols did not have a lot of female fans, right? It was more boys in anoraks, right, with runny noses and little round glasses, going, "You want to talk about Ireland?" And we're like, "Okay, sure, why not? Can we drink whiskey while we do it? Let's at least do that."
I didn't have glasses. Fair enough. Is there anything that we haven't said that you'd like to say?
Oh, other than the fact that I would like to apologize for the behavior that is going on with my country right now, and it's not my president. Like, we don't need to go into this because it's awful, but we will get through this. I tell my son, hey, in the '60s when I was growing up, people were being shot for protesting the war, right? I mean, it has been this bad before. We will get through it. I just hope that we can hold all these motherfuckers accountable and send them to jail where they belong. So, other than that, to end on a high note, it's been brilliant talking to you, Fender. I've had a really good time remembering all this stuff, and I hope everybody enjoys the podcast.
Yeah. You talk about, well, you alluded towards a legacy. What legacy do we leave behind? And I haven't published anything. I'm going to publish Steve Vai on Thursday, him talking about album, and it'll be the longest period where I don't publish anything, and I started feeling pressure, but I've had personal things that I've had to deal with so on. And I've been talking to my consulting team, which is ChatGPT, about the guilt that I'm feeling that I haven't been publishing. And they're saying that what you're creating really, because I gave them some transcripts and they said, what you're actually creating is a record. It's not, you shouldn't feel pressured to publish. You should maybe be focusing now on the people you really want to talk to, the higher caliber in your head, rather than chasing the people whose current a la mode, because what you're not is a mouthpiece for PR companies. If they want to put somebody on a radio show, they'll put them on a radio show. You're creating an archive. I went, okay, right, I'm buying that there. So you're talking about earlier, you're alluding towards what legacy do we leave, and I feel I'm leaving this legacy, and I can feel while you're talking that the DNA, all of the undertones of that Petrol Emotion comes deep within me. I'm a Derry man. And it's within the Ireland podcast. So you can walk about proudly knowing that your DNA is also in the Ireland podcast.
Fantastic. And look, I've always loved kids and always wanted to have kids, and always, and I told people that, look, kids are the universe's way of telling you it's not about you anymore, right? Like, you have a job. And I take my job very, very seriously. I love my son. I adore my son. I had a absolutely terrible upbringing. And I want to make sure that I give my son all the things that I didn't have. And so my legacy is going to be my son, regardless of whether he becomes a musician or not. I am just going to make sure that he has a better life and a better start than I did. And that to me is all the gratification I need. Like, I still play music and I love it, but like right now my life is focused on my son. And well, it should be, right? I mean, this is the way the world works. And I also mentor young people and I work with young people, and it's like it's time to give back, right? And I find that incredibly gratifying. And I'm working on the memoir. Lord knows if it's just something that'll sit in an archive for Theo to read someday about how crazy his dad was. But as you can tell from the few bits and pieces of stories that I've said here, I've had an incredibly interesting life. And I have a number of friends who are writers, professional published writers, and they're like, "Oh no, dude, you got to write this down." So who knows? Check in with me in a year or so, and maybe I'll put you on the Steve Mack music update list, and we'll keep in touch and see how we go from here.
Sounds brilliant. And yeah, obviously, I should have said my kids are my legacy, of course. But and that's why I've taken the month off, is to deal with
Good
their
for you.
needs. Yeah. Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I don't even know how long it's been. Oh, about 2 hours.
Good.
It's
Perfect.
been brilliant. Absolutely perfect, yeah. Thank you very much for your time and for all the beautiful music that you've given me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Fender.
Okay, cool. Have a great day.
All right, man. Take care.
Cheers then. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you know someone who might value this conversation, feel free to pass it on. The Ireland podcast is intended as a record of long-form conversations like this. And if you would like to support the continuation of the work, there is a link in the notes. Take care.